Okay, I've had a lot of people comment on videos about getting customers to pay them, that a lot of customers owe them money and they're just not getting paid. This has taken me a few years to figure out, and I used to do it like a lot of people starting off. Now this video is not necessarily going to be for bigger companies that have been in the game a long time. Maybe some of them still aren't doing this and it's become an issue, but we're going to discuss one of the best ways that I have found to get paid almost guaranteed every time by my customers. So, like a lot of companies starting off, I used to do it the way many companies do it. And starting off, I would print out invoices at the end of every month for all my customers, if you do monthly invoicing, which seems to be the norm, and that's what's always worked best for me anyway, is I invoice at the end every month. It shies a lot of people away when you tell them you have to be paid for every service, and maybe they don't have the cash every time to leave it in an envelope for you. 90% of your customers aren't going to be home when you're there doing the service, and especially if you get into commercial work. So I invoice at the end of every month, which I highly recommend everybody does. So they get one bill at the end of the month. Well, I was printing out every one and sending them in the mail, snail mail, and then it takes a few days to get to them. By the time they get around to writing the check and sending it back to you, it takes a few more days. You could be a week, 2 weeks out before they even pay you. So you're sitting waiting on that money, and by that point, you're 2 to 3 more mows into the service or whatever it may be, just to find out they may not even pay you, and now you're out even more money. So one of the things that I've done over the years is try to limit that to a point where I tell my customers, listen, you get the invoice at the end of the month, the following week I'll be there to mow. If I haven't been paid by the second week into that next month, I will not mow. And that has gotten a lot of them to pay their bill pretty promptly. But the one thing that I've learned over the years that has helped me to get paid almost guaranteed every single time is taking online payments. Now, there's so many services out there that allow you to do this. You got to pick whichever one's the right one for you. There's a few I've used in the past that I've gotten rid of because almost everyone gives the option for a customer to store their card on file. And some of the services stores all that information right in your system, and I didn't want all their information because I don't want to be responsible for that. So you got to pick and choose and find out which ones do what. But I used Square for a long time, and I've recently in the last year gone back to using yard books, and that is one that I really like. It makes it so much easier with Square. I still have a few more customers that I invoice, that I have to mail them an invoice, and when you use Square you can't create an invoice and then print it. You can only create an invoice and send it to them. So Yardbook, you can do both of them. You can create the invoice and then you can print it, or you can send it to them via email or even text message. So that's what I do. But the point of this whole thing is taking payments online and allowing payments online. What that does is it allows a customer to use a credit or a debit card, and the main focus of this is credit card. Now, I have found that when you tell your customer they have to pay you in cash or have to pay you in check, sometimes that delays them depending on how they get paid from their employer and their financial situation. But I've noticed over the years since I've been accepting credit cards is, the service you use is going to take a small portion of that, but I almost always get paid and always get paid promptly. Now, they see that they can just put it on a credit card and worry about paying that off later. That's on them. If they go into debt owing me money, or go into debt by paying me, that's not my problem. And I know that sounds a little cold, but this is a business and I need to get paid for my services. So whether they go into debt doing it, that's not my problem. And that doesn't matter to me either way. All I care about is getting paid, as should you. So allowing credit cards has made it so that when I email that invoice, they usually go on and pay it online right away. And if they don't, then I send them another notice, and they, if they forgot or something, then they pay it a lot quicker. So they'll pay that payment, and they with the service, they can leave a tip if they want to. And I notice with my people that pay online versus when I used to mail them an invoice, they're a lot more likely to leave tips. This doesn't always happen, but it's happened a lot more for me. So you get that little bit extra money, which makes up for that difference for what the service charges you for accepting that payment, unless you forward that charge onto them, which I don't. I have in the past, and it shied a lot of people away. I'd email them an invoice, and they'd mail me a check anyway, just because they didn't want to pay that fee that I was putting onto them. So I stopped doing that, and most of them all leave a tip anyway. It comes out to the same, or it actually comes out to them giving me more, but for some reason when you tell them they have to pay that fee, they don't like that. When it's come down to landscaping services, you give them the price, and a lot of times they don't like it, but when you tell them that you'll accept a credit card, I have found that a lot of them jump on board with that price versus shying away from it when they know they can pay me with a credit card. So it's helped out enormously in that aspect as well. I've had some new customers I've gone to and said, it's going to be this much for your weekly service. And they're like, oh, that's a little bit more than I paid the last guy. And I tell them, I said, well, I understand, but, this is my price. And then I tell them, I invoice at the end every month, and I do it via email. And at that point, you have the option to pay online. You can use a debit card or a credit card. And you can almost see the change of the look on their face when you tell them they accept credit cards. They're like, oh, you know what? That's not too bad. And they jump on board anyway, whereas if I told them they had to pay by cash every week, or pay by cash at the end of the month, or they had to pay by check, that they shy away from it. So credit cards has been a huge, huge thing. There's so many other ways you can go about this. There's a lot of companies that demand a card on file, or pay for the season in advance, or a lot of prepayment. But for those of you that don't want to do it that way, and I've noticed by talking to a lot of people, they're really hesitant on trying to do that. Maybe they don't feel comfortable with it, with telling customers they have to prepay. Just by accepting credit cards, period, will change things drastically for you and your business and the way you get paid. Also, at the end of the year, a lot of people don't know that if you invoice a customer and the end of the year comes and they haven't paid their bill, you can write all of that off on your taxes. You can give that to your accountant and say, these are the invoices I sent out that I haven't been paid for. That's lost revenue. That's money that should have been paid to you that wasn't paid by the end of the year, and you can claim that as a loss on your taxes. Now, if after the first of the year they finally pay that bill, then of course you have to claim that as income received on the following year. But you can claim that lost income at the end of every year. So there's a lot of ways you can do it. There's a lot of methods. There's a lot of different things that people do. But this has just been one huge thing that has helped me out big time over the years since I implemented this in my business. It has helped me to get customers to not only pay their invoices and pay them in a timely manner, but also to agree to prices that they normally wouldn't, that they normally would think are maybe a little bit too high. So I'm not saying it's going to work for everybody, as I always say in my disclaimers, but this is how I do it, and it may be something that you want to implement in your business that may help you out.